Welcome to the Exceptional Educators Podcast by Friendalytics EDU, where innovation meets inclusion in education. I'm your co-host, Matt Giovanello, the CEO and co-founder of Friendalytics. At Friendalytics, we put special education and English language learners front and center. Our award-winning Friendalytics EDU platform helps streamline progress monitoring, improve communication and compliance, and offer truly personalized learning to your students of all abilities. Each episode of our podcast features candid conversations with district and school leaders, classroom changemakers, edtech founders, and industry executives, all dedicated to transforming learning for each student, especially our learners with unique abilities. With a focus on extraordinary educators and the exceptional students they serve, we explore the latest in special education, accessible technology, and inclusive leadership. In this episode, Exceptional Educators is exceptionally thrilled to welcome Jim DuBois, the Superintendent of Goshen Community Schools in Indiana, just outside South Bend. Jim leads a diverse district committed to personalized learning, cultural responsiveness, and student-centered innovation. With over 2 decades of leadership experience, his work focuses on creating coherent systems that elevate personalized learning, strengthen special education and English language services, and ensure equitable outcomes for each and every student. Jim, welcome to the podcast. It is so awesome to have you here today with us.
Man, looking forward to this. It's going to be fun.
I know. Same. All right, Jim, kick us off. You have had a storied career in education. What is your why? What brought you into this space decades ago? And what got you out of retirement most recently to continue in the position that you are now?
I come from a family of educators. My grandmother rode on a horse and buggy back and forth from Ball State University. In 1925, she graduated, and she was the only woman in her class. So she did not then teach for a long time, but she was a kindergarten teacher eventually. But my dad was a high school teacher and a basketball coach. And so I kind of grew up around educators. And now my brother's a educator. My sister's an educator. And I've got nieces and nephews. And one of my children, of my 4, is an educator as well. So it kind of runs in the family. And I guess my why is it's always been a good fit for me. I love the leadership aspect of being an educator. And I also love the opportunity to pour into other people's lives. So it kind of scratches my itch, I guess.
It's only natural for you. You know nothing else. And to say you come from a family of educators is an understatement. You're now bringing that to the next generation too of your own children. That's awesome. Jim, you've held a lot of roles over the years. Tell us about, other than the superintendency position you're holding at Goshen right now, if you had to be partial, what your most favorite previous role was and why.
I started out, I was a psych major at DuBois University in Greencastle, Indiana. I thought I wanted to be a therapist, worked in a psychiatric inpatient hospital for a period of time. I loved it. It was great work, but I thought, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my career. And so I wanted to work with healthy kids as well. So I made a transition to teaching, got my elementary teaching license. I had a choice. I played college football. I was a quarterback. And so I really liked football. So I decided high school or elementary. And I felt like I could be more impactful working with kids at the elementary level. I know I was impacted greatly by my 5th grade teacher, Mr. Lambright. So I thought, I want to be like Mr. Lambright. So did that. And then I eventually became a principal for 6 years in Penn Harris Madison School District. I started out there before I was in charge of staff development for the district as a teacher leader. And then the next year I was assistant principal. And then I became a principal. And then eventually I went to another district for 6 years where I eventually became the superintendent was the idea. So superintendent said he's leaving too and said I had a better chance if I was in district. It took him 6 years, but eventually he did retire. And as luck would have it, I ended up being superintendent there for 11 years and then ended up here. And then when I retired the first time, I was a consultant. So I was working with school districts and not-for-profit leaders, mostly focused on how do we do strategic planning well in your organization. And I coach them and work with them about balance and developing a strategic plan and then executing that. And so while I was doing that work, the district room, 5 of my 12 grandkids are, and I have a son that teaches and coaches the baseball team here. He's an entrepreneurship teacher. He's a fantastic educator, had a great name in the district. So they mistakenly decided that I would be a good fill-in when the superintendent left. So they asked me to come for 6 months and I said I would do that. And it turns out that I was having a blast. I didn't think I would want to stay in any district for longer. And I saw so many opportunities for making what I consider small changes that would have great impact for children. And so, just kind of, they asked me if I'd stay and I said, well, I think I'd like to do that. So I'm in year 3 now, finishing up my 3rd year. And I just signed a contract for 3 more. We'll see if I stay 3, but the idea would be just try to stay 3 more. Having a lot of fun. We're having a lot of success and doing some, I think, innovative things that are helping kids, which is what my motivation is.
That is so apparent, Jim. First, congratulations. Second of all, the majority of people, regardless of whether they're in education or not, take a one-way trip down the retirement route. So the fact that you did a reverse course and you're back here and you can say you're having a blast, there are very few people in this world who I think can claim that. And I'm so glad that you're one of them. And that you're here to spread the positivity. I think you're finding all the amazing things of being in this leadership role. And I'm so glad that we get to spotlight just a couple of them today. Speaking of, you brought up a phrase and a philosophy that you love to live by, and that's this doing fewer things better piece. So for the fewer things that you're doing better at your district, especially since starting at Goshen, let's get into a couple of those. What are they? How do you identify them as the things that, okay, this is what we're going to double down on? And what have been the outcomes so far? I'm very curious.
The ideal thing would be to look at it and see like there's one thing that we're going to put. And if you think in terms of a football field, you put a football at one end of the field, wrote on that little football and said, this is whatever innovation we're going to do. We're going to get this all the way into the end zone, and we're going to make that part of our culture. It's not just going to be a fly-by-night switching things every year. And look at it in terms, I like to look at things in terms of a 3-year commitment. You can move faster sometimes, but I caution people to move too fast. So the first thing we did when we came here was and I have more staff here. It's a bigger district than my previous district. So there's more people I can work with and influence and allow them to do their innovation and their work. And I've got a great team. But we did strategic planning first. So first off, we looked at 4 different areas. I would call those our commitments, our financial commitment. And then the district, of course, that's really important. We had some issues with the referendum coming off and some things that we had to solve for, and buildings that needed work, et cetera, et cetera. So we've been solving those under that commitment. Under that commitment, we've come up with objectives that we're pursuing. They use the terms, we're going to take this flag, this objective, we're going to put it at the top of that mountain. So we know that's where we're going for that issue. The second issue is the one that everybody focuses on for the most part, is that student achievement. And so we've picked some objectives there. We put those, not too many, 3 to 5 there district wide. And then operational excellence is the third commitment. And the fourth one is people. And we really look at engagement, student engagement, parent engagement, family, staff engagement. So, and then we try to come up with metrics for all those objectives and things that would be indicators that we're succeeding in those 4 different areas. And then if you take that and you say, okay, what is our big innovation? We wanted to be the highest paid school district. So we made some cuts and did some things. And for a while anyway, we were the highest paid. We're now second highest in our I would say our market. But we're battling back and forth with that other district. But we're able to get some great talent in the classroom because of that. And that's where it all starts. But then having systems, it's like, what systems are we going to have in place? And we wanted to be really excellent in our systems for supporting kids. So it's one of our core values to educate the whole child. And then how do we build that into our system in that commitment? And we look at students, the whole child for us means we have area 1, area 2, and area 3. Area 1 is academic performance, and we look at course performance and things of that nature for that area, but we also look at cognitive skills. So we don't just say, well, a student, doesn't do well with their memory, we're just going to not do anything about it. We actually have a system to support kids to develop their memory skills or their cognitive skills. So that's area 1 is academic and cognitive. Area 2 is social, emotional, and behavioral stuff. So we do a lot with PBIS, kind of MTSS work there. And so there's some innovations that we've instituted there that we're really trying to drive home. And then the third area is physical, neurological, not just nursing stuff and not just making sure that all the kids that need glasses have glasses, that all the kids can hear and do all those kind of things. But it's that and sleeping and that and visual processing and auditory processing, and to have interventions set up for that. So the big one thing there would be the MTSS process, and then all the different nuances of what that is, spell that out. But then we had to develop teams. We didn't really have teams in our district. So one of the first things we did was pay team leaders and set up a system where the teams had time together and they meet twice a week. Once is on typical PLC kind of things, student data, how are we going to teach this? How are we going to teach that? What is it we want them to know and be able to do? How are we going to assess that? And then what are we going to do with the ones that didn't get it? What are we going to do with the ones that did get it? So they're going to those 4 kind of PLC questions. But then the other one is just, we have these, I don't know, I don't like the term, but in this district, we kind of come up with this term micro-MTSS teams. So every grade level team, and everybody's on a team, but every grade level team works with their own little MTSS processes. And then that aggregates up to a school-wide MTSS team. So, and we have available all kinds of then these interventions we talked about that then we double down on to make sure that kids have those tiered interventions available for them. And the team's responsible for carrying out at least the tier 2 interventions that we have on our list and working with inside the school with the system of tier 1, tier 2 interventions, with the idea that tier 3 interventions allowed to have students put into those interventions by the school-wide team. And then, of course, other resources outside the school and outside the district where we have partnerships with other groups and organizations. Those are also opened up by the school-wide team. So that's our MTSS process. And I think there's some innovation there that is unique to us, and we're pretty passionate about what we're doing, particularly with what's called our SOI, Structures of the Intellect, and our Integrated Practice Protocol. So it's SOI IPP lab for our students that does the cognitive training, and particularly in area 3, the physical, neurological, and the OT for everybody is what I like to say, or military boot camp for every kid that needs it. We have tier 1 stuff that goes on with minds and motions and programs like that. But then our tier 2 is the lab that we have set up in the school that runs and does the brain training and the kind of the sensory integration training for the most part, and vision training.
Jim, what I can't help but think about as you're talking about all of these programs, especially in depth, that you're not doing this for like a 500 or 1,000 student district. You're leading over 6,200 students across your buildings, and you're doing this at scale. So I can't help but wonder, and help me kind of think about this a little bit more, especially for those listening as well. How is this working across multiple buildings, multiple grade bands, especially when you have a very diverse group of students, whether we're talking socioeconomically, whether we're talking about English language status, whether we're thinking about students with IEPs? How's this machine all just humming, especially when you have complexities just from the sheer size of your district alone, in addition, all of those other diversity pieces that we just talked about?
I think part of the issue is when you have a size of an organization, you have to figure out the most important thing is how do you execute? It's not what you say you're going to do, what shows up on a strategic plan. It's what are you able to execute, and what can you really make available for kids? So if I were to say we're executing on the level that we want to be, I would be not telling the truth. But we are getting better, and we are able to improve in what we're doing. So a lot of times we talk about, and we had a big theme, had a speaker at the start of the year. This year was 1% better. So I, as an educator, need to get 1% better every day and work towards that. And also when we do our targets on our strategic plan, we don't try to like to get 8 or 10% better, but really it's 1% better. If we can get 1% better, it's a lot easier to make those larger leaps. I really feel like that's part of the issue. How do you just get this continuous improvement? And then how do you make sure it's pervasive across the district? So a lot of it's just communication, make sure everybody understands. Like you can talk to anybody in our district and they'll say, yeah, trying to get 1% better. Oh, we'd like to get better than 1%, on our reading scores and numbers of kids. And we have, our attendance rate was one of the first things I did when I first came in as interim. There was really 3 things that I told the board I would do for them, try to do anyway. One was there was politics taking place at the board level from the outside, and it was just manifesting itself there, and it was causing some dissension in the district. So I said, well, first thing I want to do is try to calm all that down. And magically, because everybody, I think, was tired of fighting and wanted to focus on kids, everybody started focusing on kids. There's just the fights at the board level and community members coming in and yelling at board members. That all stopped. So that was good. The second thing was we have a referendum that was coming off this year, and we wanted to make cuts prior to that to make sure that we can make payroll after the referendum dollars left to the tune of $6 million for us. So we've done that. And then the last thing that first year I said we're going to work on the first year anyway was to get 1% better in our attendance rate. So that's kind of introducing the concept while I was here as an interim and did that work. If we hold this year from that first year attendance rate and the way in Indiana we do it, it's 94% or higher attendance rate for a student. You're counted as a successful student. Otherwise, you're off track. When we aggregated that up, we're actually going to be, if we can hold 30% more of our students hitting the 94% or higher attendance rate, all by focusing on, for the last 3 years, on getting 1% better in our attendance rate. But what does that require? PSS processes that support kids that are not coming to school. It requires school-wide kind of attendance communication with parents and engaging parents and working. So we've instituted systems that have helped us get the results that we're starting to get now. So if you take that same thing and say, well, what about our behavior? We have had one of the biggest complaints I had when I came here from the principals of schools is our kids are so dysregulated. They're not ready for school. We have a lot of really severe issues of kids more than ever, and we don't have tools to help them. So we started investigating. That's why we started they had done PBIS work before. They just kind of left it go during COVID, I think. And then so we reinstituted some of those initiatives and systematized some of the interventions. We're adding this coming year, and we've tested it in a couple schools, a reset room. So every school is going to have a place where, well, we had 130 special needs kids in one of our elementary schools because that was the place where our life skills program was, and our called our Strive program, but our kids who have emotional issues. They were in that school. And I don't think it was good for kids. It wasn't good for the district. It wasn't good for kids. One of the things that we've done is we've instituted this next year. They're all going back, full inclusion, not truly full inclusion. It's still a hybrid a little bit because we will have one school every school has a special needs program that is self-contained. We're going down from 2 life skills classes in that one school at the elementary level to 1 district-wide. And then we have one that has a deaf, hard of hearing program. Our students that want to be self-contained are there. The goal is always to keep the kids in their home school district for all cases, but during transition, we've allowed this hybrid. And then we also have one for the kids with severe emotional stuff going on that they need to be in a self-contained classroom. But we also then have the goal of keeping all kids in their regular classroom setting to be provided supports and services so they can be successful there. So this reset room is kind of for any kid, not just a student with an IEP, that can go to the reset room. There's specialized training that we're doing with those folks. We've had a consultant working with us. We have an amazing behavior consultant that we've hired to do full-time leading that group. And we're really excited about that initiative for next year. It's given everybody a lot of hope that, we've gained a lot of tools, but we're going to have even more. I think it's those kind of things that you do. And then how we look at data that, it's in our evaluation system. They've done a great job with teacher training, teacher evaluation on how does a teacher work in a classroom and alone, and the best teacher, is in there doing their great work. But it does set up this kind of like heroes without a system, and we want our heroes inside a system. And so that's probably one of the things. So when you do that and you have that goal and you start working on that, you start putting these systems in place, it helps, I guess, maybe the execution end of it. So
Absolutely. I'm hearing so many things, Jim, and I think they all center around the thoughtful implementation of your systems so that when your staff come to execute them, it's actually done from a solid bedrock, from a solid foundation, instead of just, willy-nilly, or to use your phrase from earlier in the episode, a fly-by-night operation. Whether it's your MTSS Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 structures, whether it is consolidating life skills programs in the spirit of fostering inclusion in the majority of your situations, in the spirit of LRE adherence, whether it is your PBIS program and reboot, and I think you called it before we started recording, the NEST program and the reset room for students.
Yeah, the reset, we're calling it a nest. It's a place. We're the Red Hawks, so it makes sense that a Red Hawk would go back to the nest to reset, to be able to be ready to get back into their school day and learning.
That is adorable. And I think that whether we think about things like overall enrollment decline, which is happening across the nation, okay, why? And then you kind of ask, kind of like you're a kid, like why? And then you kind of get to the heart of it. It's like, okay, why is there declining enrollment? Okay, why is there low average daily attendance? Okay, why are we having students who are challenged in a general education environment? Why are we not meeting them where they are as a part of MTSS? Keep going. Why? I think that you're discovering as a group of leaders and as a group of educators in Goshen, the answers to all of those whys, and then doing something about it and saying, okay, these are the systems. And while we're not perfect, we'll be the first to admit we are getting 1% better every day. And then these are the outcomes that we're measuring. So it's really cool to see the rise in graduation rates and students who are chronically absent, that number going down. It's great to see the students who have emotional challenges, having their needs met in rooms like the Nest and the Reset Room. And it's great to see that students, while as many as possible deserve to be in an inclusion environment, those who really will have their needs better met in a life skills type classroom, still have that opportunity without needing to go out of district. So, I mean, I love all those examples. So thank you for walking us through them. I know another example that you just started to hint at earlier in our conversation. One is the addition of multiple graduation pathways, but as it relates to students with IEPs who might not be on a diploma-bound track, there's an alternative pathway for them as well. So tell us a little bit more about Chandler and how your Innovation Academy is meeting the moment for students who are destined for an alternative pathway that's made for them.
It just ties into what we were just talking about, but the idea that we have issues that come up that we need to problem solve on. So we talk about the issues. We really try to understand the issue first. We follow kind of a system, and I did this when I was consulting. It's called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, level 10 meeting. And the whole goal of that meeting is to talk about an issue, then to IDS it, which is identify it and really identify it. Make sure everybody agrees, yes, we know what the problem is. And then second thing is to discuss it until you know what the tasks you have to do coming out of that meeting are and what the next thing is. When it's obvious to everybody, then you go to solving. Everybody wants to solve before you really understand issues. So sometimes it takes multiple meetings to really get down and understand those issues. So we have a lot of kids that needs are not being met. If I were a parent of this child, what would I want to see for my child? And then the same old doesn't always work. So we had a fantastic program called IB, International Baccalaureate. But we were only graduating like 6 or 8 kids out of 500 with this program. And there's a lot of emphasis on that. We just doubled down on our dual credit through a local institution called Ivy Tech in Indiana. And so our kids are allowed dual credit. So we have, I think there's 60 different dual credit college credits they can earn while in our high school. But then that's because that was a problem. So how do we solve that? Get more kids rather than AP, they can actually get our teachers certified. So we've been doing that and incentivizing teachers and supporting teachers to become an eligible dual credit instructor. And we were also looking at high school. What do you want for it? And we had one pathway. And for 50 years, this district has been building a house a year. And it was a construction trades pathway that you could actually take through the full sequence because everything was geared towards college readiness and getting as many kids into extremely high academic college experience. Well, when you really boil it down, even if it's a third of our kids, that's what they want and need. There's 2/3 of the kids in your district that their needs are not going to be met. They're going to graduate from high school and go, wow, now what do I do? Or they're going to tell everybody, I'm going to college, and they're not really going to college. So when you look at our data, we did some national clearinghouse data and looked at what's going on with kids after, are they enrolling in post-secondary opportunities or not? And so it was about a third, and a third. So 2/3 of our 500 kids were not being served, that when they graduated, they just weren't ready. So and this was something I did while I was doing my consulting, so I was pretty passionate about this. So we now have 11 pathways. We have an alternative school that has its own state number, and they do a lot of online instruction. So it's kind of 2 things at the Chandler Innovation Academy. We actually have an online academy, but there's only like 6 kids that do online learning only. That's for kids we have that were in our district that might be overseas with family doing, missions work or something like that they can stay connected with Indiana through us to get their diploma. We have kids that struggle with school, anxiety. English is a second language. We have 60% of our homes or families indicate that they're of Hispanic or Latino. And so that becomes an issue for some kids as the language becomes a big barrier and they struggle. So some of those students are being educated at the Chandler Innovation Academy in an alternative setting, but we don't want them just graduating. That's not enough. We want them ready for life beyond high school. So we started our Pathways program, which is we have a career center in Elkhart that we send kids to. We belong to a co-op that has career center opportunities for our kids. But we also decided to start our own because we still had so many kids that weren't having their needs met. So now we have 11 pathways. We have an entrepreneurship pathway, and you'd be shocked at how many kids want to start their own business and they're learning. They're also getting 15 credit hours from Ivy Tech. They're getting to the instructor. It has his MBA, so he can offer dual credit in those courses, and they can get a certificate in entrepreneurship and go on, finish their associate's degree in entrepreneurship if they want. We have a welding teacher that can offer 21 credits of welding through the Ivy Tech as well. He's an amazing welding instructor, so kids can do that. We have business supply chain logistics pathway, which is kind of a very entry level kind of everything's a business. We have business supply chain logistics for a lot of our alternative education kids like that because they can go out and get a job at even a McDonald's as long as when they're doing their work at the local McDonald's, that they double down on learning about how things are ordered, how they're shipped, how is logistics done inside of the McDonald's, the grocery store. If they're a bagger there, they do the same thing there. That's all supply chain logistics in the food system. Doing that work, they have a certification, national certification that they sit for, and it's called the CLT, Certified Logistics Technician, and it's kind of an entry level, a lot of logistics companies, and we have connections with those, but also it works in so many different organizations as well. The marketing pathway, we have baseball team did really well came third place in the state of Indiana anyway, but they had a great run last year. We were putting videos up of all their baseball games, and the kids were involved in the sportscasting of that on YouTube. They also did social media posts and a lot of those kind of things, but they do that through the marketing pathway. So we have an accounting pathway, and we're building a plane right now in a kit. We bought a kit in conjunction with the local Boys and Girls Club, and the kids are building the kit after school. We're making it a pathway next year. So the students, the instructor, they're going to get airframe mechanics kind of experience by building another kit next year. The plane that's going to be done in the next few weeks will be the plane they fly. So then they're going to get flight hours as well. So they'll be building a plane, looking at how to build it. And we have a former military guy that did the plane. He's going to be the instructor, and he also is a pilot. So he's going to take him up, and they're going to get flight hours, do some ground school work. So that's another innovation that we have. Yeah, the entrepreneurship class is pretty amazing. We've got some kids in pitch competitions, we have 3 of them in the final of this regional pitch competition next Thursday. And that's the first year we just did the entrepreneurship program. So even if let's say you're a special needs kid, or you have limited English proficiency at this point, you kind of new to the country, but you come in and you take a class in entrepreneurship, and there's all kinds of ideas you have. And if you're willing to work and you learn some systems, we use this kind of lean canvas that they learn how to organize a business and do some investigation as to really understanding the problem before they come up with the solution. Once they come up with the solution, it's like then they build a prototype. A great example is we have a kid that rides around a one-wheeler, and he was actually in our engineering class, and it was the engineering capstone class, but he rides this one-wheeler everywhere, and there's no way to lock it up. So when you go to a bike rack and you can, lock your bike up. Well, he had to carry it with him everywhere. So when you go into something, he would ride this one-wheeler. I don't know, it's got a motorized one wheel that he drives around, and he wanted to build a lock for it so he could lock it up at a bike rack. And so he designed something, 3D printed it in the engineering class, has 2 kids that are pitching his idea, and he's actually helping them pitch the idea in the entrepreneurship class. But they tested it. They went out and did empathy interviews with people in the community that have those one-wheelers, and they all have the same problem. He's solving that problem. They're going to sell it on Etsy. So look for, if you have that same problem, he has a solution, and the 2 entrepreneurs are helping him build out the platform to set up his LLC. But that's an example of students that he's an engineering or top-notch student. The 2 young ladies, one of them in particular, well, they're both just amazing too. But we've had kids that barely make it through school that are in that class that are shining right now because they've caught the idea of something they want to do for a business. But it's more than that. It's just every student that we have, we need to find ways to help them have hope for the future and also have the skills necessary to be successful in doing something beyond high school. So every student, even if you're like a top student going to go to Ivy League school, we want you to have a pathway and be ready for an entry-level job. We have a CNA program I didn't talk about, but this is pretty cool. Every single student has passed their CNA, but they're going on and getting additional training, and they all have being offered tuition reimbursement, so that it's like a full ride. But we have students that are really top in their class that want to be doctors in this group. And their thought is, I can work in home, do home visits. And anywhere I go to school, I can just sign up. I'll be certified and ready to go. I can make $25,000 $22 an hour instead of making, $10 at the Pizza King. I can make, $18, $20, $25 an hour doing home visits and in the field that they want to be in healthcare. So, but they're also getting additional training if they keep going on and keep working so many hours with one of our employers that they all get job offers from in the local hospital as well. But it's a retirement community, full, range of supports that they have, and our kids are really shining there and they love us. We're calling it the Greencroft Medical Academy. And so we've given them naming rights to our program. But those are the things. I get excited about it and I start blabbering, so I apologize for that. But I just know that every student that we have, and our special needs kids, we're also looking at job training and things that we do for them to get them ready for employment as well. So everybody should graduate ready to work. And then those who have the opportunity to continue on stacking degrees, stacking other additional kind of credits to their work or certifications. That's what we're after.
It's unbelievable to hear, Jim. I so enjoyed listening to all of these pathways. And I think the big takeaway that I have is regardless of your interests, regardless of your background, regardless of your abilities or challenges precluding you from accessing school the same way that a neurotypical student would, you're not limited in your outcomes or your potential when you're at Goshen because all of these pathways can cater to you. It's just like you need an innate desire to pursue them. And world is your oyster. Like college readiness is not the only path anymore. Career readiness, I think you're really putting the pedal to the metal, so to speak, and making sure that all of those opportunities are being offered to all of your students. It's so cool. Like CNA program, an entrepreneurship program, like some of these things for me, I didn't learn until a business degree in college, and not until sometimes even the real world. So the fact that they're getting this exposure so early on is just from a personal perspective, really, really cool to see.
Yeah.
So Jim, we are sadly at the end of our time today. I have one more question for you as we wrap up our conversation. What does being an exceptional educator or being an exceptional leader mean to you?
I think it means being a hope starter, someone who gives hope. I don't know if you've ever kind of some of the research around hope, but the idea is that you have a belief that your future can be better than it is today. And then that you have a plan and that you don't just stop with one plan. It's like, plan A, plan B, all the way to Z, double A, double B. Just you have an infinite amount of plans that you can put in place. And then you have agency that you believe because you have had success and you do believe that you can be successful. You put those factors together and you have hope. So an exceptional educator is someone who can inspire hope and understand the science of hope. And then that's what I would say an exceptional educator would be about, is being and then that you put systems in place to help make that happen, that you multiply yourself and you help your leadership in your district and to continue to be that hope inspiring system that can make things happen for kids.
I think it's that combination of luck and preparation that people often tease is a winning formula. And all of the components that you just listed, Jim, is what's resulting in the outcomes that you've hit. It's not sheer chance or sheer coincidence. I think it's a lot of planning, the right people in the right positions, a little bit of luck, and striking that match at the right time. Jim, you're exceptional. And I love all those examples that you shared with us. It was such an absolute inspiration and pleasure having you. I'm so glad you came out of retirement to inspire our next generation of students, educators, leaders, and even yourself. I'm sure you're learning a little bit more each and every day too. The best kind of educator does. And to share all of your wisdom with us today on our podcast episode. This was such a delight. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
My pleasure. For everybody listening to today's episode of the Exceptional Educators Podcast, thank you again for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode.